Alright, so let's take it one step further. We talked about just price actions, traditional support, resistance areas, and possibly prior day value area if you have access to that. That's for anybody that is interested in trading, regardless if you're using TradeStation or our indicators. Now, for those of you who are using our indicators, let's take it one step further and add a couple other indicators which do help regardless of price action, regardless of the type of condition, market condition. So we're gonna talk about the developing value area footprint, and we also have the Z-Keltner channel on here. Now, one thing to keep in mind when price action gets really narrow range like we have in this area here, you really cannot, using the trend that's built into the Z-Keltner really goes out of the window. In other words, when you get to this area, it's all a matter of fading resistance and fading support. And for entries, you could use, for entries, what I do, again, this is what I do. If it helps you, great. If not, just discard it. What I do, and I'm going to talk from my perspective, so it doesn't seem like this is what I'm suggesting for you guys to do. Uh, what I do is use the oscillator and for my entries and price action confirmation. So as we began to pull back inside of the initial range, we moved back up here and to the high of the initial range, and this was, and the Z-Keltner channel is giving us a downtrend. This was a good entry. You could use the Z10 oscillator for your entry, and you could have gotten short here and caught this move. And if by this time you had realized that this was going to be support, then you would pretty much get out of your entire position. But eventually, as if you had stayed short and stayed part of your position at break even, when we pulled back in here and you notice that the developing value area low is going sideways, telling you that this is support, and combined with the support that we had drawn from previous day, then you would automatically get out of your position there. So that's combining the value area, developing value area with traditional support and resistance areas can be dramatic, can be a dramatic help for you, not only understanding what type of market condition is, but also trade management. Once this occurred and we start seeing that the developing value area pulls into the initial, you notice that it starts pulling into the initial balance, that's when really a warning should go off and tell you that if we do not start to moving, if we don't start moving lower below this swing point and outside of this zone, then you really have to just either do not trade if you're not comfortable with this type of price action, or just fade the support and resistance area. So this is your last, this is basically a big clue. Value area is getting really narrow. It's within the initial range. The initial range was not that large either. So that's another clue, another advantage, a good indicator that you could use for this type of price action. When we get into these support areas like this, taking continuation trades here is just a no-no. Don't do that, because everybody else is going to be able to, is going to fade this area. Again, here, don't take continuations near here. My rule of thumb is this: in narrow range days like this, I won't take short trades below the point of control, the developing point of control, unless we break, we're making lower lows. And then vice versa, I will not take long trades above this area unless we're making higher highs. Okay, so that these few simple things that I'm talking about here help me dramatically, and I hope it helps you. Uh, let me show you one other interesting thing, and then we'll wrap this up. I was long, and when we got here, I started noticing price action showing some selling coming in. Then I looked at my indicators, and when we got up here, we made a new high, and I noticed this divergence in volume index, and I pretty much got out of here. I gave it a little bit more time, and I pretty much closed my entire position here. Now, this would be a reverse. This would be a good place to take reversal trade. Wait for this low to be made, wait for a lower high or a double top to form, and then fade that. As long as the volume index is giving you that divergence, and that would have been a good short trade to take. Aside from that, this type of divergence that occurs, because this is basically from volume information that occurs and price fails and pulls back into the initial range, that in itself, I was confident that we were, in other words, as confident as one can be in trading, that we were not going to break the daily high. And so I was extremely bullish and was looking for a range to expand. Although there were no economic there's no economic reports on the calendar today, I figured we still would just continue going higher. But then I had to adapt and switch, and pretty much became very bearish when we started pulling in here and when I saw this top form. So this was very key for me to be able to switch my position completely. In other words, go from being bullish bias to a bearish bias, and then in the afternoon and from this point on, I just focused on taking long trades. I did make a note that if we test these lows, I would get bullish. In other words, this lows, because this was a value low of yesterday, I would possibly get bullish, but I really thought we would take that out and continue going lower. It just didn't happen. So I focused on short here, I believe a short here and a short here, which took forever. And I was scaling, and I was pretty much covering 2/3 of my position down here and just giving a couple of contracts in case we do break, and all of them price came back and triggered my basically my break-even stop or my trailing stop on them. So once I got out of here, I didn't even bother trading. After that, I just stopped trading. So this was very important for me, and I think that's pretty much covers everything. Hopefully some of the stuff that I mentioned will be useful to you, and any of you guys that are using our products. If you do have a question regarding these days, and send me an email, send me personally an email, just send it to kent@zuna.com, and I'll do my best to answer it, and hopefully I'll be able to give you a good answer. Thanks for watching, and you guys have a good weekend.